Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for NAMI Maryland's 40th Annual Conference. My name is Sarah Weissman. I'm a volunteer with NAMI Maryland, and I will be your moderator for this session today. This workshop session is Parent Craft, a free evidence-based resource to support caregivers concerned about adolescent substance use, presented by Melissa Ambrose from the Maryland Family and Youth Interventions for Substance Use. You can read more about our amazing presenters, including their full bios, in the digital conference program on the official conference website. This presentation will introduce participants to Parent Craft, an evidence-based online video course that teaches parents, caregivers, and concerned others solution-focused, practical skills and techniques needed to meet the risk of substance use. Highly engaging online video segments include structured suggestions for practicing skills that are not only applicable to families with substance-involved youth, but also relevant to anyone raising an adolescent. Focus areas include effective communication, positive reinforcement, natural consequences, and strategies to support youth accepting treatment. If this is not the workshop you meant to attend, please click the back button on your browser or click on the Sessions button on the left-hand side of your screen to return to the full list of workshops we have available. We will be addressing questions at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions as the presentation continues, please post them to the Q&A on the right-hand side of your screen. We will be reviewing questions as they come in, and if something in particular is unclear or needs to be expanded, we will ask our presenters after their presentation has concluded. We are pleased to offer closed captioning for this year's conference. Captioning is only available for attendees using a desktop. To enable captioning, please click on the CC icon below the display of our presenters at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the icon, the video displays will become smaller and you will see the captions being generated. If you have any questions, comments, or technical issues, please post them to our chat and our technical assistant will address them accordingly. I'd now like to welcome and turn it over to Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. So yes, I am Melissa Ambrose. I'm with the University of Maryland School of Medicine, Department of Psychiatry at the National Center for School Mental Health. And I am the project director for the Maryland Family and Youth Interventions for Substance Use. And I'd also like to introduce my partner today, Dawn Trumbull. She's a parent with lived experience, and she is going to be discussing some of her experience with adolescent and transition age substance use, as well as her experience and thoughts on Parent Craft. Again, I'm with the National Center for School Mental Health, and we have a wealth of information related to adolescents, families, and school mental health. And if you aren't already familiar with the National Center for School Mental Health, I encourage you to check us out via our social media or our website. Maryland Family and Youth Interventions for Substance Use is funded by the state opioid response. And it is an expansion of training for evidence-based practices to providers, behavioral health providers throughout Maryland to help prevent, identify, and treat adolescents with opioid use disorders and other substance use disorders. We are pleased to partner with Morgan State University, Bowie State University, and NAMI Maryland on this important work that we do. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about adolescent substance use. So the numbers that we have on this screen are really pre-pandemic numbers. We know that pre-pandemic that approximately 15% of youth were using substances to a level that impeded some form of their functioning, such as having school problems. And let me just say right now, I apologize if you hear the dogs in the background. They're very protective of me. There perhaps may be a squirrel or a bird outside that they are wanting to protect me from. So I apologize. Hopefully they'll settle down in a minute. But anyways, getting back to youth substance use, pre-pandemic, we know about 15% of youth were using to a level that impeded some form of functioning, such as having problems at school or at home. And approximately 3 to 5% of youth actually met the criteria for a substance use disorder, and it's estimated that 1 in every 100 youth were misusing opioids. So I don't need to share with you. I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir when we talk about the really potentially devastating consequences of substance use for adolescents and transition age youth. One of the things that I always lead with, especially when I'm working with adolescents, is that first and foremost, their brain isn't fully developed. Their brain isn't fully developed until the mid-20s. And so not only do they not have possibly the ability to rationalize, and judgment isn't fully developed, but the actual use of substances can impair their brain development, putting them at higher risk for substance use disorders, health problems, sexual assault, unintended pregnancies, criminal involvement, difficulties with school, accidents, overdoses, and possibly even death. So the National Institute on Drug Abuse has come out and said that has taken a strong stance recommending that any adolescent that substance use is impairing their functioning at some level should receive treatment. So again, they are recommending treatment for any adolescent that is using substances to a level that impairs their functioning. So what does that mean? If perhaps I'm not talking to behavioral health providers that are familiar with that, what does that mean, impaired functioning for an adolescent? It means that their level of use is contributing to either possibly difficulty in school, maybe their grades are dropping, maybe they're withdrawing from school, less focused on school, difficulty in their job performance, perhaps if they're working part-time, they're having problems. Their substance use is impeding their ability to work. Maybe they're missing work, not doing their seeing to their responsibilities as well, failing to fulfill obligations, again, at school, at work, at home, maybe having some negative consequences related to their substance use, again, getting in trouble at either school, work, or home. Impaired relationships with family. Their substance use is causing problems with their relationships with either their families or their friends. And then, of course, impaired judgment, poor decision making. We see that they're no longer, or they're not making good choices because of their substance use. So we know we're saying that anybody with impaired functioning, some form of impaired functioning, should receive treatment for their substance using behavior. But there's some developmental considerations to take into account when we make that recommendation. First of all, it's unrealistic to expect that substance using or abusing adolescents are going to actually refer themselves for treatment. Not to say it can't happen, not to say it doesn't happen, but it's usually not the norm, and it would definitely be the minority of adolescents seeking help, that they are seeking help on their own. In fact, really, the reality is that most adolescents who do access substance use services are doing so because they are mandated, that they're being required either by their parents or their school or some other form of authority, such as juvenile justice. However, it is important to note that this mandated substance use is proven to be just as effective as voluntary treatment on teen outcomes. And also another point, a developmental consideration, is that young adults, adolescents, and transition age youth really do need caregiver support to initiate treatment and learn to abstain from learn to obtain abstinence or decrease their substance use behaviors. So it really is so important. So we can't stress enough the importance of family and caregiver involvement in the treatment of adolescent substance use. Caregivers and families just play a critical role in even understanding or recognize that adolescents are having a substance use issue and may need treatment. Again, the importance can't be highlighted enough, given their own investment in the adolescent. Because of their proximity, their relationship to the adolescent, potentially living with them or a close relationship, they may have an understanding of what has worked or not worked in the past. And certainly they have a very unique perspective on, what are the warning signs or risk factors related to their own adolescence use. So again, as we highlight the importance of caregiver involvement, it's really important that we begin centering caregivers in how we actively address adolescent substance use. And research shows us that even individual services for adolescent substance use, when there's parent involvement, this tends to improve the outcomes and the service engagement. Also, family therapy-based approaches do have the strongest empirical support for adolescent substance use treatment. And that's typically because these treatments target changing parent behaviors, helping the parent to learn to set clear boundaries, clear expectations, helping them to increase consistency, learn about how to share, reward desired behaviors, allow for consequences, provide support. And also typically the family therapy-based approaches also work on reducing conflict in the home by helping to teach and promote better communication, problem-solving skills. And certainly in terms of BIPOC youth, research is telling us that Black parents tend to have a greater influence over youth substance use decisions than do white parents. And in fact, Latinx parents actually expect to be included in adolescent treatments more so than do white parents. So with that, so as important is, and we're highlighting the importance of caregiver involvement and centering caregivers in treatment, there's a lot of common barriers to actually involving the caregiver effectively in substance use treatment. This is a variety of reasons. Often it's because the caregivers don't have the skills that are needed to interact and engage with the adolescent in a productive manner related to their substance use. Their own stressors and their own anxiety and distress about their child's use can also impede their ability to use skills. They may not have good support. They also may have a lot of competing responsibilities and stressors that are in front of, that are the adolescent substance use. Yes, I have a lot of problems, and my adolescent substance use is just one of many. And perhaps it's not the most demanding one at the moment. And certainly the other issue is difficulties finding or affording treatment. So at this point, I would like to stop and introduce again my partner, Dawn. And Dawn, as I mentioned, is a parent with lived experience. And so I just want everybody to be able to hear from Dawn a little bit about her own lived experience raising a youth that has had and continues to have substance use issues. Dawn?
Hi, thank you for having me and let me share my story about my son. I was a single mom, and we lived with my mom and dad because it was a good situation and best for my son. I've tried everything. We come from a good family, hardworking, and it affects everyone. But my son, who recently just turned 26 last month. He started using drugs in actually middle school. He had cerebral palsy. It's a very mild form of it, but it also has caused dystonia, which is a movement disorder. So in elementary school, he was bullied horribly. I ended up having to take him out in 5th grade, and I put him in Catholic school. That was very cliquish for him. He could not, I think it really stunted his social development throughout elementary school, which I think to a point now as well. But he wanted to return to public school in middle school. So we tried that. And that's where the person who befriended him was using drugs. So it started off with marijuana. Then I'm not sure what all he was putting in a drink, but I was living with Little Wayne for a while. Literally, he was like trying to mimic him. And it was really, it was a lot of stuff going on. He also at that time he has generalized anxiety, OCD. He's had bouts of depression, and he's had bouts of psychosis as well. He needs to be re-diagnosed again, I feel. But at that time, he had started cutting himself. He wanted to kill himself. He was hospitalized in Shepherd Pratt at the age of 12 for suicidal ideation. Things that you never think you're going to go through. By the time, and I took him to places. He was in therapy at the age of like 9 because of the anxiety and things he was having. So I was on top of him, I thought. I don't know if I didn't see it or if I didn't want to see the drug use signs, but we went to Mountain Manor. That was really just a joke. I don't know what else to call it. It was not helpful at all. It just wasn't helpful to him. I had him in an IOP program in Annapolis, and that did work for a good while. He also got involved into NA. I was taking my then 14-year-old son to NA meetings and, crying in the parking lot because there's kids behind us playing ball. And that's where my kid should have been, it was hard to deal with because I felt like I was doing everything I could do to keep him in the right direction and away from these things. In the same time, trying to deal with the effects of the bullying, the effects mentally that he was going through, as well as physically. It was difficult. I feel like we have a wonderful support system, but it took some time for that to grow into what it is now. In the beginning, like my parents, they didn't understand. It's a generational thing. They didn't understand why I was putting him in an IOP program. And I had to tell them, if you have nothing nice to say about it, then shut up, because this is my last hope right now. This is what I have to hold on to for him. And I can't have you wreck it because of your opinions. Say it to me. Don't say it to him. It was his life. So, and they understood that. And through that, I think they really gained a knowledge as to what it was doing. And then when he started NA and they went to his first 1-year anniversary of being sober and clean and all of that, they saw those changes taking place, and they saw the impact that he had on other people, which was a great thing to see, but it was still hard to go through. It wasn't easy. It has been a journey, just as his mental health issues are a journey. When earlier this year, NAMI had, asked me to take a look at this CREP program. And when I first was going through it, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this 10, but actually in reality it's probably about 14 years ago. I think it would have been so much more beneficial, and maybe his path may be a little different today if I had it back then, because I would have been able to handle myself differently and him at a time when they are so, you can still reach them a little more, and they, you still have control to a degree. I think I really wonder if it would have been more beneficial to him then. But now I'm still finding it. I'm using it. I just used some of these skills this morning with him. He's not talking to me at the moment, but that's okay, because he will. But it is, and just for my own peace of mind, and to know that, okay, the things that I need to do, I'm doing. And that you cannot, and I'm learning how in the past I have enabled him, not realizing I was enabling him. And that but there's so many skills, and it is definitely a conscious effort to make these changes, and you're not going to be 100% all the time. But for me, the biggest things that it helps me to keep myself calm while I'm trying to figure out, am I talking to my son? Am I talking to addiction? Am I talking to the mental health issues that are going on? Am I talking to all three? Am I talking to who am I talking to? But it helps me to try to stay centered, and so I can remain calm and run that conversation and not get caught up in my own feelings about it in the moment and react that way, because it's definitely in our reactions to our children that run these conversations. And I think sometimes, runs their behavior as well. And that it's okay and it's good to give them positive reinforcement, but there's a time and a place for it. And I learned that I was giving it at the wrong time in moments, because I'm thinking, okay. So there is one of the skits in the program where the mom ends up giving him pills. Well, I've given him money to go and get his weed, because I know and this has not been that long ago, but I know that he needs it for the weed does help his, the dystonia. He ends up becoming rigid, and he will drop where he stands. And it does help alleviate all of that. But he's not just using it for medical purpose. And I shouldn't have done that. So, because all I'm doing is enabling it. That's not helping him. Sometimes it's hard to see the positive changes that they're making, because we're so used to just focusing on the negative. And it is a good reminder for me to say, hey, well, when he comes over, I'm like, and if he helps, and I try to be really aware of what he does and helping out for things. And he'll be like, you don't have to thank me for that. And I'm like, well, I still appreciate that that you took the trash out for me, or whatever it is. Because all those little tiny things do matter to them. And sometimes when they're in the grips of their own mental health issues and, using and all of that, they feel horrible about themselves. And sometimes if it's just the littlest thing that can help them stay positive, who knows? It helps.
Dawn, thank you so much for sharing with us your personal experience. I think your story really resonates with a lot of us, a lot of parents. I mean, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've done adolescent mental health for years, and I didn't escape, my children engaging in adolescent substance use. And I think, you show that everybody has different experiences, some more extreme than others. But the reality is that families and individuals, concerned significant others and family members do play a really important role in, again, as we talked about, getting individuals, getting adolescents and transitional age youth into treatment, and then also a really important role with the outcomes. As we mentioned earlier, the family involvement contributes to better clinical outcomes. So with that knowledge, the community reinforcement approach and family training was developed, known as CRAFT. And again, it's an evidence-based intervention that was designed to help concerned significant others, such as, partners and family members, engage their treatment refusing substance abusers into treatment. And so again, this was developed with the understanding that family members play a very important supportive role in their loved ones' treatment and getting them into treatment. CRAFT is considered a form of motivational model of family therapy. It's really based on the use of positive reinforcement. It takes a very non-confrontational approach and really works to influence the substance user's behavior by changing the way the family interacts with them. And it is a culturally sensitive approach. The goals of CRAFT are to help families learn practical and effective ways to move their loved one towards treatment, to reduce their loved one's alcohol and drug use, and to simultaneously improve their own lives. Because as Dawn was sharing, this is so stressful. It's not just affecting her child, it's affecting her. It's affecting her whole family. So with all of that being said, that's the background of CRAFT. We now have a version of CRAFT specifically designed for parents. And so this is entitled Parent CRAFT. It can really benefit any parent of an adolescent or even an adult child that is in any stage of using drugs or alcohol. And I also will even go a step further and say any parent of an adolescent or transitional age youth that is engaging in challenging behaviors that the parents are struggling with, there's some great information in here to help us, again, respond appropriately. So it's great for, again, an adolescent dealing with an adolescent with substance using behaviors. But I think that what you'll see is 3 out of the 5 modules, I think, are really beneficial for any parent raising an adolescent. I'm sorry, just to access Parent CRAFT, I also need to highlight, and I'll say it again and again, Parent CRAFT is a free resource that is now available to all parents and caregivers with really no hoops to jump through. I'm going to show you how to register for it. If you want to check it out, you can go ahead and scan the QR code we have on the screen, but I'm also going to show you the link. So as I mentioned, it is an online video course that is geared directly towards parents. So parents and caregivers take this course independently at their own pace. It's comprised of 5 modules that each module builds on the other, and each module is less than an hour. So the idea might be that parents do 1 module a week. And incorporated in the course are worksheets and homework assignments. And you can go back and review these videos as frequently as you like. So what are the components of Parent CRAFT? So as I mentioned, there are 5 modules, and these modules include developing a roadmap of your teen's use, of your adolescent or transitional age child's use. What are their triggers? What are their rewards? What are they getting out of the behavior? What are the negative consequences? What are the positive consequences? So this is really an exercise in helping you as the parent learn more about the adolescent's use, what they're getting out of it, maybe what it's costing them. The other module is on communication skills, and this helps parents learn important skills in addressing their adolescents' substance use. Also a module on providing positive reinforcement to help influence and change behaviors. And the 4th module is allowing for natural consequences, which, wow, I will admit, as a parent of an adolescent, I definitely did not play my best game on allowing for natural consequences to unfold. I think it's hard for us to often see our children affected by negative consequences. And, unfortunately, we have a tendency as parents to sometimes want to rescue them. And then the final module is recommending professional help and helping your adolescent find help for their substance use behaviors. So if you can see, as I mentioned, there are 5 modules, and as I said, 3 of the 5 modules, I think the communication skills, the one on positive reinforcement and allowing for natural consequences, are all modules that I think could benefit most parents raising adolescents today. So again, module 1 is understanding their use, what their triggers, maintaining factors are, what their negative long-term consequences are. Negative 2, again, focuses on communication skills, and it teaches 7 skills related to effective communication. And these skills include being brief, when engaging in communicating with your adolescent about their substance use, being brief, being specific, being positive, labeling your own feelings, referring to specific behaviors. Those are just a few of the skills that you are taught. And again, a great module to really help any parent improve their communication with their adolescent. Using positive reinforcement to influence and change behavior, as Dawn kind of talked a little bit about that, the importance, how she recognizes the importance of using positive reinforcement, and not only of using it, but when is the right time to use it. Again, I mentioned I struggled as a parent with allowing for natural consequences. And so this is a module that helps us learn to how to help stop enabling and protecting our adolescent. And then finally, a module on helping them to receive professional help for their substance using behaviors. So as I mentioned, there are worksheets and exercises within the course, but I want to take a minute. Again, here is the QR code you can scan, or you can go to the website, cadenceonline.com/Maryland. It is especially important that you visit. There is a Cadence Online course, Maryland, a Cadence Online course, cadence.com. But it's very important that you go to the Maryland website, because Cadence Online, if you were to go take this course, is a $200 course. But again, free for all Maryland parents and caregivers. And so you have to go to the Maryland's Cadence website. So let me stop sharing at this moment, and I'm going to reshare, show you a little bit about how easy it is to access the Cadence Online website. So if you put in the website or you go to the QR code, you're going to come up to this landing page, which again is going to tell you a little bit more about Parent Craft, what it's for, who it works for, talks a little bit about myths. And then it's going to ask you to register. So registration's down here. Really simple. When I say there are no hoops to jump through, there really are no hoops to jump through. It's just going to ask you a little bit about your relationship to the young person. And then just regular, ethnicity, county. It's going to ask you your email. How did you find out about Parent Craft? And wham, bam, there you are. You are good to go. So let's jump in Parent Craft. Let me show you what it looks like once you get into Parent Craft. You're going to come to, this is what the web page looks like. The course looks like. You're going to have the tab up here that has the course, resources, and then contact information for some other resources if needed. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and play the introduction, because I really feel like the introduction gives us a really lovely feel for the course itself. I am a clinician. As I mentioned, I'm a clinical social worker. Most of my work has been done working in adolescent mental health and adolescent substance use. And so when I'm presenting a resource or a training, it's really important to me that I can speak highly of it and I can endorse it. And I really do like this course, Parent Craft. And so I recommend all parents and caregivers of adolescents that they're concerned about adolescent substance use to take it. I also recommend providers to take it so they can understand the course and they can potentially refer other parents to it. They can even use pieces of the course in working with parents that are struggling with adolescent substance use. So let me go ahead and play the introduction for you.
Hello, and welcome to Parent Craft. Congratulations on beginning a new chapter in your relationship with your child. CRAFT stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. It's a set of skills that...
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you try sharing your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't share the screen again?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. Let me know if you need help, and I can share mine.
No, I just need to make sure I'm getting to the right one. Are we seeing it now?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's start again.
Hello, and welcome to Parent Craft. Congratulations on beginning a new chapter in your relationship with your child. CRAFT stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. It's a set of skills that anyone can learn. CRAFT is an evidence-based approach, which research has shown empowers adults to change the alcohol or drug behavior of their teen and young adult children. It's powerful, and it works for parents, grandparents, and other adults worldwide. This course is made up of filmed scenes with actors, direct instruction, and brief interactive quizzes. The scenes will probably be familiar to your own experiences, but of course, every family is unique. There will also be worksheets to be completed at your own pace. Parent Craft is broken into 5 sections: communication, roadmap, positive reinforcement, natural consequences, and seeking professional help. Each section builds on the ones that came before, and communication skills are the most crucial of all. So it's best if you complete the sections in the suggested order, but of course you can work in your own direction and at your own pace. You can easily access any of these sections and the chapters within each section at any time by simply using the index that appears below the video window. This work can be difficult. It isn't always fun, but it really will make a difference. Many parents who use the craft approach find it can positively shape interactions with all their children, even in the absence of substance abuse. Take a moment to remember that the first step to healing is often the hardest. You've accomplished something just by starting. When you're ready, we'll begin with the communication skills module.
All right, Dawn, do you think we should jump into communications and show them the sample of communications? Is that one of the ones is that one of your favorites?
Yes, I think that's a good one.
Okay,
for sure.
Great. And again, I think this one can benefit, any parent trying to raise adolescents right now. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the communications one.
Everyone can have communication problems, and every relationship can benefit from better communication. For parents dealing with adolescent substance abuse, communication is an important asset for recovery. Let's work together to build your skill set and achieve positive outcomes. Of course, you're only one half of every conversation, and there may be times when your child's not ready to listen to you, no matter how skillfully you communicate. But one person can learn to set the tone, nudge the door open a bit more for the next conversation, allowing you to try again until you succeed. It takes practice to get comfortable with new methods of communication, so don't get discouraged if things don't improve right away. Let's work together to build your skill set and achieve positive outcomes. This tutorial will explore key techniques that could really make a difference to your family. We'll see examples of poor communication, talk about them, and then go on to demonstrate how those 7 skills could have made a difference. Here's an example of some ineffective communication. It features our first family, Karen, a divorced working mom, and her 18-year-old son, Ethan. Let's watch it together. Remember, take breaks whenever you need. Your progress will be saved automatically.
You're up late. Look at me. It's practically sunrise. Ethan, you can't behave like this.
I'm 18. I can do what I want.
In this house where you live with your mother, you will do as I ask. When I was your age, I lived with my parents and I followed the rules, including the rule about being sober.
Relax, okay? I was just down the street and I'm home now.
Answer your phone when I call. I worry for you every day and
my phone died.
I thought you died. God, just go to bed.
Or what? Or what?
I said go to bed. Get some sleep. God knows I won't.
Did that feel a little familiar? Good news. There are core communication skills that can help you. Community reinforcement and family training, or CRAFT, identifies 7 skills at the core of effective communication. You don't need to use all of them in every conversation, but it's a good idea to learn them all so that you have more tools to draw from if you do need them. These skills are: stay on point, be positive, refer to specific behaviors, label your feelings, offer an understanding statement, accept partial responsibility, and offer to help. Let's start with our first skill, stay on point. When trying to get your point across, it's important to say what needs to be said without a lot of extra talk. Adolescents and even young adults can have relatively short attention spans, and if you go off on tangents, it can take attention away from your main point. Tangents are even more distracting if they're emotionally charged or they bring up feelings from the past. So, in short, be brief. The following scene is an example of what ineffective communication can look like if you don't stay on point.
Oh.
Explains a lot. I can't believe. What What the hell are you thinking?
Sorry.
Sorry? That's all you have? I don't even know where to start with you.
I'm sorry, okay? And I won't do it again.
You mean you will do a better job of hiding it?
Uncle Dennis smokes weed.
Do you really want to turn out like him?
You know what? Keep it. You need it more than I do.
You think this is funny? How did I wind up with a kid like you?
I didn't ask for you either.
Karen said, a lot. Put yourself in Ethan's shoes. Was there a clear message for him to take away? How does he feel after what his mom said? Let's take a look at the same scenario, only this time, we'll see Karen staying on point.
Ethan, look, this is hard for me. We have rules here, you know. One of them is no drugs in the house. Another is to stay in touch, and I expect you to respect those rules. Please do not bring drugs into this house. And let me know when you're coming home. And if I call, I want you to answer. Do you understand?
Yeah, totally. Sorry you were up last night worrying.
I don't need you to apologize. I need you to remember.
That was better. Karen's message came across loud and clear. No extraneous blaming or ear beating to cloud the point. Now, whether Ethan follows the rules is out of Karen's control, but she controlled the message and kept it focused. When you're frustrated.
So I'm not going to keep going through this communication skills, but it's going to go through, as you can see, it goes through a scenario where it practices the skills related to positive communication skills. It shows you the videos of really what works and what doesn't work and how it can work. So I really do love this module. Again, I think very helpful for so many parents raising adolescents. Dawn, you were saying just earlier today you were using some of these skills. What is some of the things that you've learned from Parent Craft that's helped you?
I think the biggest thing is to stay on point and not allow my frustration and my emotion and how I feel about what's going on, because every time every episode of whatever goes going on, it plays a part in your reactions, and you can't, I'm not going to say you can't, because I've done it. But it plays a part in your conversation with everything else, the new things that happen. And I think that's the greatest skill that I am learning from craft, as well as the whole positive reinforcement thing, because it is so easy to get, there's so much, I mean, in my I can only account for my situation, but for him it was so much of it, and there's so many different things that he's had going on, and it's hard because I was struggling with, physically the things that he's unable to do, and you as a parent, you want to try to make things easier for them, and then that becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And when they start doing drugs, you can't. I know we've all heard of tough love, and it can be what saves them. I know during the time when I think this happened after I found a bong he made in his closet. I took everything out of his bedroom. Everything. He had enough clothes to barely get through the week, enough socks to get through the week, underwear. He had shirts, pants, socks, his tennis shoes, whatever. He had sheets, one pillow, a blanket. That's all that was in his room. Everything, pictures, everything was out of there. His dresser was empty. everything, I just put it in totes and I put them in the basement, and he had to earn his stuff back.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Because it's important that we not try to enable them or try to, I guess, save them with everything. They have to feel some of the.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's
the consequence.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's something that, again, even as myself, I've struggled with. So that's a great idea. Let's take a look at the natural consequences a little bit and talk a little bit about, and then we can talk about that.
It's a balance.
It's a balance
for sure.
All right.
Although using reinforcement or rewards for healthy behaviors is powerful in influencing behavior change, it's often not enough. In addition to using positive rewards, parents must learn how and when to do nothing. It's natural and appropriate for parents to guide, protect, and help their children. But when substance use enters the pictures, those parenting practices often are not the best way to help your child to change. Sometimes our natural instincts of guiding, protecting, and helping end up making it easier for children to stay exactly where they are, using substances.
Bobby? Oh, you're wasted. You're sloppy drunk.
Sorry.
What the hell, man? I did it again.
Sorry. Birthday shots. Mandatory.
Did you drive like this? You're gonna kill somebody. Wait. Whose birthday?
It's for me, Dad. It's my birthday.
Last week. How long do birthday parties last? That doesn't matter. Look, there's no reason for this. We have talked about this. Did you drive or what?
Oh! Mikey gave me a ride. No. It's Mike's brother, Chuck. No. It's Charles.
Get it together, Robert. We've talked about this before. If you want to be a successful and responsible adult, you got to work hard and take care of yourself. Can't you see you're screwing up? Wasted talent, that's what it is. You're way too smart for this. Promise me you will straighten up and start focusing on your life.
Yeah, Dad, I will. I definitely will.
Do you remember what I said to you last night?
I think so. Stop drinking, right?
That's only part of it. You should be working hard. Working or looking for work. Just buckling down and just doing the right thing. Not this. Getting drunk, partying every weekend messes you up for days. And there's no progress, none. I wouldn't hire you like this, that's for sure. If I could just get through to you.
Dad, I get it. Okay, I get it. Just leave me alone for today. Tomorrow, I'm a new man. Trust me.
Although Ed has every right to be upset about Robbie's binge drinking and is simply trying to guide and reason with him, it's not working. Clearly, he has been trying this approach for some time, and Robbie's not getting any better. What's more, Robbie's heard this so many times before that he's tuning it out. Ed's parenting approach might work well with a child who does not have an out-of-control drinking problem, but it's not working with Robbie. Ed might never think of what he's doing as lecturing or nagging, but Robbie might very well see it that way. The more his dad acts in this way, the more he is pushing Robbie away, making him feel worse, and leading to more drinking. Just as guiding and reasoning isn't working for Ed, arguing wasn't working for Keith.
All right.
It was really harsh to Lauren when she started using. If a kid tried.
Okay. So that just shows you, again, a little bit more about the course Parent Craft. But I wanted, in the last few minutes we have, and then we'll be happy to take questions, I did want to talk about a little bit about how Parent Craft can be used. So if you're a parent, obviously go in and take the course. There's a lot of good information that will help you navigate these challenging years with our adolescents and transitional age youth. If you're not a parent, if you are a provider or you are a family navigator that works with parents, go ahead and take the course so that you can perhaps share this information, share the course, recommend the course. I've done some of these presentations with to some school-based groups, some families from schools, and I've heard people say, and I'd recommend it. It can be a basis for parent groups, so even maybe form your own support group potentially, or if you're a counselor, perhaps run a parent support group and use this as the basis for the group. If you have a website that offers resources for families and parents, I encourage you to link Parent Craft so it can be easily found. If you're a provider or you know somebody that's struggling, that's parents that are struggling with adolescent substance use, please share this important resource and information. If you're a provider, you can use it as therapeutic homework, assign it, process it back in sessions. And then as we did take a look at it, but there are some resources and worksheets for each course and module, and I highly recommend that you utilize those as well. We have just about a few more minutes before we take questions. Dawn, is there anything else you'd like to add of Parent Craft before we open it up for questions?
Yes, I think the other part, aside from like they will give you little quizzes, so it's not just you're constantly watching.
Mm-hmm.
It'll ask you questions and give you multiple choice answers. And through that you can learn a lot too. But it's the I guess the homework. I'm trying to think of. I have them looking at it. It's the worksheets. I'm sorry. The worksheets. They are, I think, incredibly beneficial because it helps you to take away your own feelings about what's going on and to see what's going on with your child from a little bit more from their perspective, which in the end, in doing so, it gives you it gives you a little more insight into what's driving them to use.
Mm-hmm.
And also it helps you to be a little bit more understanding, and I think to help you learn and to actually be able to pull off the skills that you're learning.
Yeah.
I really would recommend definitely to take the time, because it's worth it. And our time is very valuable and none of us have a lot of it. But I think it would definitely be beneficial to anyone who is taking the program to take the time and to complete those worksheets and to really give it some thought.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your support. And we appreciate your sharing your experience and how it's benefiting you now. Like you said, your son is 26, and even this morning you mentioned that you found yourself using some of the skills this morning. So I'm glad. I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I'm glad that this resource is able to support you, and you're able to benefit from it. So with that being said, are there any questions? Do anybody have any questions about Parent Craft for either myself or Dawn?
So thank you, Melissa and Dawn, for a great presentation. And Dawn, thank you especially for being so open and honest with your story. Thank you so much for that. If you do have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A on the right-hand side of the chat, on the right-hand side of the screen. And if we don't have time to answer all the questions today, you can send your questions and the name of the session you attended to connection@NAMIMD, that's NAMIMaryland.org, or you can submit your question in the end of event evaluation later this afternoon. And I will go ahead. I had a question.
Yes.
So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We have a couple more minutes. I'm going to go ahead and ask my question if I can.
Please.
And that is in your presentation and in looking at it, is there a time when you think it's too early to watch the modules? Is there a time where, the information that's presented can be beneficial as a parent? Is it when you first suspect or even before your children enter the age where they might be utilizing substances?
So here's what we know for some Maryland data. Again, this was pre-pandemic, but for some Maryland data, 53% of high school students admitted some form of substance use. And we also know that a large number of 8th graders in Maryland have reported some level of substance use or is engaged in substances. So I think that as our parenting changes from raising littles to elementary school to middle school, I'd recommend that starting in middle school, late middle school, parents check this course out so they can be kind of wrapping their mind around that this could be coming down the pike. I think we like to think as parents, I think there's a big automatic denial factor that happens for all of us. Well, not our kid. Our kid's not going to make those bad choices. We've raised our kid right. We've taught our kids this. We've done this. We have these amount of protective factors, but nobody is insulated from it. And so I think being prepared is better than coming in late. But I think at any point, learning these skills would be better. But yes, I would promote parents checking this course out before it's become an issue so they can kind of be prepared if they start seeing some of these behaviors.
I agree. I think that even as your children start to go through those hormonal changes, because it's not, I feel like you can use these skills not just for when you're thinking that they're using drugs, of course, then, but these skills, I think, extend over into just regular teenage attitudes, and they get combative, and they all go through that. I know everything and you know nothing. But so I think those skills are still, they apply. So if you can prepare yourself, like Melissa was saying, before those things, before those happen, you're going to be ahead of the game in helping your child.
Yep.
And you can keep your relationship as well as helping them through, and hopefully it doesn't turn into addiction.
And think about it, was talking about this developmentally, so again, our parenting changes as they move through different developmental stages. So now they're in a whole new stage and they're whole new creatures. And their communication is probably changing. The way they communicate may be changing as well. So again, staying with it, not realizing like, oh my God, my child's 15 and I haven't been able to really communicate very well for the past few years because they're changing. So again, learning effective communication strategies, I think, is important for any relationship, and particularly for effective parenting.
Thank you so much. Matt put in the chat, automatic denial, not just true about kids, but anyone in the family.
Yeah.
So.
When you're up close and personal, it's hard to see it. We don't want to see it. We don't want to think it's the problem that it is. And so I think it's human nature for us to when we're so close to it, to minimize it and denial.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for those answers and the information. That is all the time we have for now. So thank you for joining us today. At the end of the conference today, you will receive a link for an evaluation survey. If you'd like to acquire CEUs for this workshop, please submit your response no later than Saturday, October 22nd. The next workshop will begin at 11:20. Be sure to take some time to stretch, get some water, and we will see you at the next workshop session. Thank you again for joining us, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Dawn, thank you so much. You're a great partner to present with. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh.